All right, so we are live, and we're going to be talking about all things PPC. And so I am joined by Jake Zaratsian, who's not just any Jake, he is the Jake from Jungle Scout. So the Jake from Jungle Scout, thank you for joining us here on the My Amazon Guy live stream today.
Of course, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're excited about that. So we're going to be answering folks' questions today about pay-per-click advertising. So when you have your questions, drop them into the chat. I generally will go pretty much in order of when I get them, but sometimes I go a little bit out of order. And so what ends up happening is we get to the end of the live stream and we have more questions than we typically have time for. And so the best time to get your question answered is now. And so it looks like we've got someone who's already dropped in quite a few questions, which we'll do our best to get to those as well. And then someone else said, what's your best launching strategy in this event? So we'll get to all of that. But before we do, Jake, you want to just introduce yourself and Jungle Scout for those who are not familiar?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Jake Zaratsian. I'm an Amazon brand owner myself. I am a consultant as well for a few Amazon brands, and I'm a content creator at Jungle Scout. And if you're not aware of who Jungle Scout is, the elevator pitch is we are one of the leading Amazon intelligence platforms for Amazon sellers and brands. We have a suite of tools that are designed to help sellers really of all sizes and stages. We have tools specifically for new entrepreneurs, or we also have tools for expert sellers. And we also have an enterprise suite of tools for some of the world's largest brands. Jungle Scout was the first Amazon research tool in the market, which debuted in 2015. And so that extended time frame has really allowed the Jungle Scout models and engineers really to become really trained. And because of that, we have some of the best data accuracy out of any tool on Amazon. So we're really proud of that. But yeah, thanks for Kevin having me on. And for those who haven't heard of Jungle Scout, you can just head over to junglescout.com to find out more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing I'll say about Jungle Scout is I was one of those OG customers back in, maybe not one of the very first ones, but it was in 2015 when it was the Chrome extension was the one tool. And to see how Jungle Scout has grown into a suite of tools from everybody just starting to huge companies and in between, it's really cool to see that. So the good news is you guys have gotten to see quite a bit of what works and what doesn't, especially at your role at Jungle Scout, as well as consulting for some brands. You got to see what works for pay-per-click advertising and whatnot. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's sort of my specialty area. Prior to Jungle Scout, I worked at a few Amazon brands. Agencies, Amazon agencies. One of those agencies was one of the first ever like Amazon partner agencies where we worked directly with Amazon account manager, essentially. So we had some inside, basically had like an inside person at Amazon that would give us a lot of strategies that we should implement to the brands, because they want, obviously, Amazon wants brands to just make use of all their ad platforms, all their strategies. And yeah, I feel like I have this is sort of like my expertise area. So I'm glad that you have me on here, and looks like we're gonna have some good questions already.
Yes. We generally get some enthusiastic questions. And so folks, ask your questions. We'll get into them here in a second, but Roysh1 has asked quite a few questions. So Roysh1, email me, kevin@myamazonguy.com, and let me know. I promised you access to the PPC Mastery Summit that I just hosted back in May. And I will get you access to that, just because you're very enthusiastic here with a lot of good questions. So first question, we'll bounce around a little bit here, is for the best optimization, should I use keyword phrases throughout the title, description, bullets, and A+ content? And is it equally effective by using single keywords from these phrases?
It's a great question. Yeah. So Amazon, for the most part, and this always changes, I'm sure, just cares that you have certain keywords in your listing. So to answer the question, single keywords is really all that matters, except for your long tail high intent customer. You want to speak to them with those phrases. And kind of what I mean by that is if you're selling, so for an example, I always use this example, but it's a good one, because at Jungle Scout, we sell a product on Amazon and we document the entire series on YouTube. They're washable pee pads for dogs. And it's like a really good example, because there's two types of dog pads on Amazon. There's these washable ones that are reusable, and then there's disposable pee pads, and they're way cheaper, and they come in like 100, 200 pack, where ours come in a 3-pack. And if we didn't put washable or reusable in that very front, and that's one of our highest search keywords, it has like over 100 or 300, I can't remember the exact number, monthly searches for it. We need to put that exact phrase in the beginning. So we've identified some high intent, really long tail keywords that are important for us to put in our title, important for us to put really all throughout the listing. Really, once you have it once, you don't need that kind of keyword stuff and put it everywhere in the listing. But hopefully that helps answer your questions, is to identify the long tail high intent keywords and use that phrase. But then for all the other keywords, you can kind of have them scattered out as long as they make sense and they're readable to a customer.
Yeah, that's true. Because at the end of the day, you got two audiences. You've got real people, hopefully, that become customers. And then you have bots that are trying to understand, what is this listing? Is it an iPhone case or is it a microphone? That's trying to decide that. And I like what you said about the high intent keywords, because oftentimes we talk a lot about like, there's this big keyword and it's got lots of searches. And if I just go after this keyword, I'm going to be sitting on a beach with a laptop and living the laptop lifestyle. But the reality is, oftentimes, especially with newer products, you got to start out with those more high intent keywords, because otherwise, if you're going after the shorter phrases, you might have a competitor with 10,000 reviews. And if you have 100, it's going to be harder for you to get those higher placements just because of the click-through rate.
One of my favorite actually like little hacks for figuring out what keywords, long tail phrases you should have in your title, and really at the beginning of your title, is one, check out like type in your that keyword on Amazon, look at it from the mobile search, like on the app, and then look at it on your desktop and see where it cuts off, like your title cuts off. You want to make sure those long tail keywords are at the very front so someone's seeing it right away. Images are going to be where the eye naturally goes to first, but then if there's any confusion or just before they click, a lot of shoppers will glance to the title real quick. And if your long tail keyword isn't in there, they may just kind of glance over your product. And so I like to do that on the mobile version as well as the desktop version. And then what you want to do as well is see what products are on the page. And so if you're typing in, Kevin, to your point, competition is going to be fierce, and especially in the beginning, launching a new product. If you type in, let me go back to the example, washable pee pads for dogs, and you're seeing products that are like $20 below you, they have thousands of reviews, which surely they will, and then use a different phrase, like maybe it's reusable pee pads for dogs, and you see a little less competition there or more products similar to your price range, I would prioritize that keyword. So there's like a fine juggling act between like high search volume, relativity, and then competition as well that you want to consider.
And I like that of looking at it, because oftentimes we talk about like, look up the keyword, but you mentioned looking it up not just in one place, but desktop and mobile, because it's going to cut off differently, and so that way you can see how it cuts off. It's a good one. All right. So Roy Schwan also asks, for backend keywords, is this where you can use broad keywords or other category keywords that can relate to my product? Example, if selling tumblers, can I use baby stroller handle organizer as a, that might be an interesting one to get into, is, what do you prioritize in the back end is really probably what he's asking here.
That's an interesting example, because I feel like where maybe Royce, you're coming from is like, people use the tumblers and they put it in their baby stroller handle. I would have, this is just my opinion, I would avoid that. I essentially use backend keywords as, I'm only talking to Amazon, obviously, but it's what else could I not include in my listing that makes sense. And so like, trying to think of a good example. Okay, I'm going to go back. I'll probably just use this example all throughout now that I've kind of introduced the product, but
might as well.
Okay, sorry. I just have these kind of locked in, these examples locked in already. But what we do on the back end of ours is people don't type in like PP pads, for example, right? There's some weird search volume for it though. Like there's like a couple hundred people that type in dog PP pads, but most people don't use that. So it didn't make sense to really add it in our listing. That's something that we kind of add to the back end. And there's a lot of examples like that where some people may say it that way. And a very popular example, Stephen Pope is like, I think famous for it, is using Spanglish or Spanish words that do have search volume. So yeah, I guess maybe the way I like to think about it to summarize that is, what could I not include in my listing because it didn't make sense search volume wise that some people will say, and it's also going to help Amazon, categorize my product in more diverse ways.
No, that's a good point. Whether it's misspellings or Spanish or just another way of saying it that you might not, that might be kind of awkward to put in the title, but is still high intent. All right, so I'm going to skip around a little bit. So Royce is asking lots of questions, and so if you have questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A, and we will get to those as quickly as we can. And what ends up happening is when you or when we run out of time, we will run out of time at 1 o'clock at the top of the hour. So if we still have a lot of questions, and this, if you've ever been in school, what happens? Professor says, "Hey, does anyone have any questions?" Everyone just sits there staring at each other. Then at the end, there becomes this momentum of everybody's asking their question as time's running out. So now is the best time to ask your questions. All right. So with that, Muhammad asks, Kevin, can you please crack your best launching strategy in this event? I'm going to let Jake talk about that.
And sorry, this is just high level, like how would I launch a new product using ads?
Let's say, how would you launch a new product on Amazon? What is your best, not your worst, your best launching strategy?
And then, sorry, just to make sure I'm super clear, is this specifically advertising, or is this kind of like product research and everything else included?
Let's focus on it, since this is a PPC AMA, and we still get some questions coming in that are not necessarily PPC related, but I'll let you take a stab at it from a PPC angle.
Yes, there's two approaches, and I will say the approach that I've been going with lately. The two approaches are waiting until you're retail ready. It's a popular phrase, and especially in like the agency world where you're working with brands, is you want to wait until your listing is retail ready, which means typically it has at least 5 to 10 reviews that you would have gotten from Amazon Vine. And then at that point, obviously you need your listing. I'm assuming like your listing is kind of good. You have good images, you have at least one video, obviously good content and keywords, A+ content as well. So there's that route, waiting until your listing is retail ready, or there's getting your listing retail ready with ads. And that second approach is how I've been launching lately and wasting no time, because Amazon fees, specifically the storage fees, they add up. And so if you are waiting for, Vine reviews to come in, that could take months. Last time I actually used Amazon Vine, I only did about requested like 40 or 50. And it maybe took they all didn't come in, but it took like 3 or 4 months to get even half of that amount. And it just took way too long. And so, how I would launch is to think of my advertising as an investment and to run ads. Don't look at the ACOS. You got to be careful with how much you're willing to lose in that sense. We always talk about ads being in the early stage an investment, and consider how much you have to lose. Ideally, you won't lose that much, or you'll break even with your ads. But specifically, maybe drilling down into my exact approach is, I'm a big fan, and I'll say it all the time, is of a 1-to-1 campaign format. And I'm sure there's a lot of variations of this or iterations, but how I think about it is, if I'm launching one product, for example, there's only going to be one targeting type per campaign. And so I have this one product, and let's call it an auto campaign. But within auto campaigns, you have 4 targeting types. You have close match, loose match, which are targeting keywords. And then you have complements and substitutes, which are targeting products on the product detail page. I will launch basically 4 campaigns, turn off on each of those 3, and only enable 1 targeting type. And I'll just name it, like ASIN or SPA.A, sponsored product automatic. I'll name it close match, and then my ASIN at the end. And I'll do the same thing for all the different targeting types. Same thing with manual campaigns. I would have exact match keywords in one campaign. And even within those, this gets crazy, I know. It might sound a lot, but I think it's truly worth it. In one campaign, I might target only one search intent. And so going back to the pee pads, some of that types in washable pee pads for dogs. I might have that campaign literally only have one keyword, or just a bunch of keywords that have washable pee pads in it. So washable pee pads for dogs, washable pee pads for pets, and have like maybe 10 to 20 of those in exact match. Do the same thing with a different intention, reusable. Another one that we have is waterproof. Sometimes people just type in waterproof. And so we have the waterproof ones. And you'll just find the reason why I do this is that certain keywords, as you scale up your business, I'm always thinking about, when I'm launching a product, how am I going to scale? Because you don't want to repeat work. A lot of people will launch a few campaigns, and then once they get to a point to where they want to scale it, they have to create new campaigns. And it takes so long to just kind of do that work. And you really are creating new campaigns, which has to collect more data and learn. So yeah, I launch these really segmented campaigns, and that helps me scale. It helps me understand what keywords or intentions are less profitable and more profitable, and then I can just raise and lower. Basically, I'm grabbing or I'm producing a bunch of levers, is how I would summarize it, and I would launch that way. Be really aggressive.
Yeah, definitely be aggressive. I like what you said about including the search intent kind of grouped together. Because a lot of times you hear people say, like, don't put more than 5, 10 keywords together. But
Yeah,
oftentimes, they're just first 5 in the spreadsheet, copy paste, next 5, copy paste. So, but you're talking about grouping them together based on the intent, which is good.
yeah,
So that way you can kind of see, like, oh, okay, washable is not working as well as waterproof type
exactly.
keywords. Okay.
Yeah, because they're different customers. I mean, some people, yeah, type in different things, and that could be a totally different intent and stage of wanting to buy your product, and you figure that out only after segmenting campaigns really
Okay.
granularly.
Good deal. All right. So, Royce, you asked a lot of questions. I'm going to skip back and forth to yours and let some other people get some questions in too. But Viper1213 asks, hi, thanks for having this live. I noticed my PPCs did okay in May, but all of a sudden, June 1st, I haven't had too many sales and with ads still spending the same amount. Any ideas? I know it's difficult to see without seeing the accounts. So basically, spend is consistent, but sales are down. So part of me kind of wonders if this is a seasonal product, but what else would you be thinking about?
Yeah, I'd be really curious to see what you've changed, if you've changed anything. It could have been if you were seeing high costs, you dialed some bids back or your bidding strategies back, or it could just be, the suggested bid range, for example, has changed and you may have been bidding at like an average of like $1.50, but now that average has gone up because it's more competitive now in it looks like June. So yeah, I would look at what you changed or what you need to change. And sometimes just testing and iterating. The one thing I would always recommend though, and especially with the new product, I guess this wasn't made clear if this is a new product or not, but when you make a change, it takes time. Like you typically will never see a change overnight. The cause and effect of a change. So
Yeah.
give it time. I know that's a hard thing it's a hard answer, honestly, but that's always how I approach it. I'll never make a change and judge it with less than 2 weeks of data, essentially.
Yeah. And sometimes, to your point, things are changing over time. And so it's a dynamic environment. Your competitors are making changes and you don't see their changes necessarily taking effect right away. So there's all these moving pieces. And I would do what Jake said earlier, go look at it on mobile, look at it on desktop and see what you find there that might be different. And some of it is just, certain products do well during certain times of the year. And so maybe you have a seasonal type product that doesn't do as well during the summer or whatever the case is. But yeah, there's a lot of things that one could dive in there to take a look at. But it is interesting that it's still spending the money. I'm assuming it's
right.
All right. So let's go back to Royce, who says, if using a high competitive category, do I start off with 3 campaigns, exact broad phrase, $100 for each to be most effective? If using strong keywords, does that mean I'm burning through $300 a day? What would be the most effective conversion rate to do this in category where I'm not burning $300 a day, or is this the only way? I kind of know where I think you're going to go with this, but
Yeah, I mean, first, you don't need to spend $100 per campaign, especially in the beginning. I would dial it way back and wait until you see that you're out of budget. And if that's happening early on during the day and your ACoS is good enough, then you could dial it up and keep spending more and more. But if you start maybe with like, assuming you just have 3 campaigns, like the example here, $15 a day, $20 a day, and you're not spending enough, that's fine. I wouldn't think about it in a way of if you have, let's say you have, like $1,000 in advertising budget. I wouldn't think about it in a way like, what does that mean for like my daily budgets? Just be very conservative with that money because it will go quick. And I would start really conservative with the budgets. I'm sorry, the budgets. Bids, I'd be a little more aggressive and then just wait till I sell out. But that's how I would look at it. I wouldn't spend $300 a day, especially just starting out.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that stuck out to me was the competitive keywords.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
you've got your puppy pad example. I've got a different example, which is marker.
Yeah.
So if you look up markers on Amazon, it is completely different than if you look up, like, let's say, dry erase marker or purple dry erase marker that I'm holding
Yes.
here. And so, are you going after the right keyword? Because too often people, look and see like, oh, there's this high search volume for markers, so I'm going to go after
Mhm.
markers and I'm going to be rich. But don't start off at markers if markers is not the right intent for your
Yes.
product.
A really good way, like it's funny because like people like me on YouTube, we show people how to find the best keywords, like the ones with the highest search volume and the long tail keywords. But what you want to do is like the opposite of this. You want to find those really low to like medium level competition keywords or search volume keywords, and that's your battleground for a few months. And then
Mhm.
only until your listing is, I would say, this is all arbitrary, but like 50 to 100 reviews at minimum, can you start kind of leveling up and competing with those more competitive keywords?
Yeah, that's a good point. Start where you're at, and it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the big keyword right away. All right. So, and also, if you have questions, folks, feel free to drop them into the comments. I will prioritize PPC related questions. We're getting a lot more kind of like launching and keyword related questions. Perhaps that's because what Jungle Scout is known for. But Jake knows his stuff when it comes to stuff outside of um, those topics. Jake knows a lot about PPC, which I can tell here. So, all right. So I'm going to skip around. And if I'm skipping someone, please don't feel bad. Let's see. Another question I have here. I have Jungle Scout and Helium 10. What should I be looking for keywords that are high, moderate, and easy? Which kind of goes back into finding the right keywords. So now we're helping this person with the strategy, which is PPC related, which I love this feature more. But I see the results are different from Helium 10. Why? Oh, that's a good question. So if you have different tools and they have different results, how do you decide what you should be looking at?
Yeah, so it's like there's two questions here. I'll answer the second one maybe first and come back to this first one.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there different results in both? Different learning models is the best way of putting it. Each company is going to have their own data models, their own engineers who have learned throughout the years. If Amazon's showing this, here's what it means. And they're using real data essentially to inform their models. And so I said it earlier on in my intro, but I'll say it again. Obviously, I'm going to say this. I work at Jungle Scout, but Jungle Scout is one of the most accurate tools for product and keyword research related data. And that's because we were the first to debut, and we have an insane amount of engineers that are still on, and they have all this learning and this experience from the early days of Amazon, essentially. And the models, essentially, it's almost like ChatGPT right now. Think where they're going to be at in 10 years because everyone's using them versus a new and upcoming or another OpenAI tool. And so that's really long way to answer this question, but just different data models. You want to choose one, essentially, ideally. It's good to use both and then marry them into one sheet. But if you're going to look at search volume or any data that one tool has, or really both tool has, but the numbers are different, you want to use just one because it's all going to be directional data. For example, if you're looking at the term washable pee pads for dogs, Jungle Scout may say it's 200,000 because that's what our data suggests, and Helium 10 may say it's 100,000. Whatever it truly is, it doesn't matter because they're both telling you that this is a high search volume keyword, and this other keyword, the second keyword, is lower or higher than that. So I guess the best way of answering this is to use one tool directionally. And then you could use both if you want like a bigger list or a broader, more diverse list of keywords. Then to answer this first question, you could probably do this on both tools, but in Jungle Scout to help you find like what you should be looking for specifically to find the high, moderate, and easy keywords is two things. One of these is going to be a manual approach. The first one that is automated for you is using a filter like minimum keywords, for example. In Jungle Scout's Keyword Scout tool, which is our keyword research tool, you can use like 4 as the minimum, and that'll help you find those long tail keywords. The idea there is long tail keywords will typically have more intent behind them. Kevin, to your example of instead of marker, purple expo marker or purple dry erase marker. Yeah, perfect. Like that's a very high intent keyword. So using 3 or 4 as a minimum the keywords in the phrase, that's going to help you. And that's an automated way of condensing a big list down to like the easier or moderate keywords. And the manual part is what we talked about earlier, is actually typing that in on Amazon. If you're on a desktop, maybe go to an incognito browser, so it's not using your previous buying.
Another good tip.
Yeah, because Amazon's your search results are going to be different from my search results because we're different people. We buy different things. We have different interests. And so incognito is great on a desktop, and on your phone, you can do it as well to get different results, but it will be a little bit more selective for you. And then see what products are showing up. See if those are really going to be competitive products for your product. If your product's $30 and all the products on the page, or at least at the top of the page, are like $10. As a customer, you probably wouldn't even scroll down and click the product that's 2 times the price. So do a little bit of manual work with those long tail keywords and see what your competition looks like and what product Amazon is suggesting on the search page.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. All right. So another question comes in. Launching a luxury brand on Amazon, is it worth it? Well, that's a loaded question. Then I think there was a follow-up here to that. I'm working on a luxury brand launch of leather, pull-up leather, and all pure cow leather, bags, jackets, shoes, etc. There seems like Etsy is more worthy than Amazon in case of luxury brand. There's a lot of different directions we could go with that statement / question. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, maybe like a high level here, it would be, does the market want a luxury option? If you're seeing in reviews, like people are saying, for example, maybe something's made out of plastic, and people are like, oh, the quality is horrible, it breaks within a week or something. Well, if you were to launch something in metal, for example, I know it's not the leather example, but comparing plastic to metal is a good one here. If you're launching a metal product to solve that durability issue, then I think the market wants it. So I would be really careful of just launching a luxury brand simply to have better margins, because I would assume you'd have a higher price and therefore better margins if you get a really good deal from your supplier. But you really just want to make sure that the market wants it, is how I would think about it.
That's a good point. And, at the end of the day, Amazon is a marketplace, and it just happens to be where a lot of customers are at. And maybe your customers are somewhere other than Amazon. But I would challenge people to think that when in doubt, they're more likely on Amazon. I'll say this. I sell a product that I have customizations for, like I do custom orders. I had thought I would do better on Etsy for that particular product. It is 10-1 on Amazon. Oh, wow. Etsy is known for customization, but yet I do so much better on Amazon. And it's selling like crazy this week because it's Father's Day and it's crickets over at Etsy. So just nice. My 2 cents there.
That's awesome.
All right. So do you suggest in UAE how to find products to rank as a beginner for the master MPL? Why am I drawing a blank on what MPL might be?
I was thinking private label, but I don't know. I guess I wouldn't know what the M would.
Yeah, maybe it's master keyword list or master phrase list, or maybe one of the two. But anyway, out of curiosity, does Jungle Scout service the UAE marketplace?
It's a good question. We have partial compatibility. So I think there's some tools that we just don't get the data from because Amazon doesn't give tools like us that data, but there's some data that we can get. And so we do have partial compatibility with that market.
Got it. All right. So coming back, Roysh asks, how many keywords should I use in each campaign? Bras, phrase, exact, etc. Going back to the $100 a day budget. Yeah. In for demand for competitors, and then moderate keywords that are still strong, high volume, include do difficult. So basically, you've got money, which we said, don't worry so much about necessarily the daily budget. You don't want to eat it all up right away. You want to go after keywords where you have a chance. But then how are you structuring this? I guess would be the question that I think Roysh is asking Jake here.
Yeah. Going back to what we mentioned, using an intention as like the main way to group your keywords in a campaign. But then to answer like how many of those, because you could probably find in some niches, like even 100 keywords that have that same intention or that same like keyword in the phrase. There's different variations. So I would still keep it pretty low. And that's so arbitrary. Like low for me is anywhere from honestly 1 to 20 in an exact campaign, broad and phrase to me are a little different. Broad essentially is a more targeted auto campaign, since it is going out and, like, if your phrase is pea pads, it's going to grab words that are they could be similar. It could be totally different from the phrase, or it could be words in between, after and before. And so I use broad as a auto targeting campaign. It's more concise, and because of that, I actually use less keywords. Because it can just like catch on fire really quick and get you spending a lot of money where you wouldn't want to. And it requires a lot of attention looking at the search term report to see where you need to negate keywords that are irrelevant. Phrase to me is basically like an exact campaign, but just a little more helpful, or a little more broadly outreaching. And it's going to help you fish for new keywords that you didn't consider. But either way, in either of these three targeting types, I would keep it in the range of 1 to 20. If you need to, create separate campaigns. And the only reason why I say keep it low is because you might have like identified one keyword that is like your golden keyword. This is the one long tail keyword phrase I have to rank on because the results on Amazon are just like my products in the same price range. I can compete with these guys. If that's the case, you want to make sure you're spending on that keyword. So if you have 50 keywords in one campaign, you don't really have as much control over that one keyword. So you can keep your list low, or what I do for those golden keywords is actually create a whole campaign just dedicated to it, an exact match only.
Got it. All right. So Royce also asks, I have Jungle Scout and Helium 10. What should we be looking at for keywords that are difficult? I think we kind of already touched on this one. All right. Hassam asks, question 1. I'm launching 4 product variations. 2 are kits with 1 differing item in each. So basically there's something different between the 2 different kits. The other 2 are individual items. All variations are related but contain separate items. Should I run PPC campaign? I guess the question here is, when you have variations, so I'm assuming these are, parent-child variations, which sometimes can be a controversial topic, as most things in the PPC space are. But what are your thoughts on, how do you structure when you have variations?
I keep it the same, especially when I'm first launching. I'll create campaigns for everything. Over time could be a month, it could be a year. You'll realize which products do better with advertising. In my experience, it's the cheaper price option. It gets people into the listing, and then it gets them to upsell to the other products. So I would still run campaigns. Normally I would have each ASIN in its own campaign. That way, again, going back to being really granular with your targeting approach, you have that capability. You have all these levers. And then really what you want to consider, especially on a listing that has multiple variations, is to use I think it's the purchase product report in your campaign manager. Okay. That report will tell you what products people are actually buying once they click on any ad. And you may find, I found this with one of my latest products, is that I have a product that was the cheapest product. It was like a $20 product where my other listings or variations were $40 and like $80. That cheaper product did really good at getting people to click into the listing, but I wasn't getting that many sales on that product. And I was like, should I discontinue it? But I realized they were actually clicking and buying another product from that ad. So because it was a cheaper price, people wanted to click on it, and they go, oh, I actually need more. I need a bigger size. And so they actually got upsold from that cheaper click. And so I would really look at that report as you're dialing in your ad campaigns. But as a whole, I would still launch normally each ASIN in its own campaign with separate campaigns.
Got it. So you're saying put all just like you would normally launch one product, even though they're grouped together as a variation family, each one is its own unique standalone product. And then over time, you might start turning off some of those campaigns.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I hate turning off campaigns, but obviously if it's just a horrible cost over time, that's what you have to do. But one thing to consider too is if you have different variations, this used to not be the case, but I'm seeing it more and more now. You can show up multiple times on the search results page, even on the same listing. It used to be that used to be something that they said you just can't do. So you should launch different ASINs rather than variations. So you can actually show up on the same search results page in some categories. And then you can also target your own ASIN, even within the same variation family. So that's something I'm seeing more and more of launching branded campaigns targeting your own ASIN. So when people scroll down, they see your other variations. Now, obviously, they probably would have saw it from scrolling down and seeing other variations, but it's not like you're getting charged the impression. You're only getting charged if they click it. So it only helps you by having almost like a branded campaign that only targets your own ASIN. So you could do that to have more defense on your listing, if that makes sense.
Yes. Okay. And then a follow-up question to that is, what is your perspective on back-end search terms, which we kind of talked a little bit about earlier, but I'll let you answer this one again because it's a pretty important topic. Do you use the same keywords as in the title, or do you differentiate? What are your priorities when it comes to back-end search terms?
Yeah, definitely differentiate. I wouldn't repeat any keywords that I already have in the listing. Amazon's already has that information. So what I would do is just take different words, so similar words, and then add it to the back end, or words that, hey, you know, John.
Oh, it's John Aspinall. Usually he shows up to these live streams and it's like, he's a guest. He's usually not in the background in the room. I don't know how this happens.
So you can't hear.
John is an alumni.
I hear him enough.
He's saying a lot of bad things about you.
Probably is.
Yeah.
I'm saying. I'm saying John is actually an alumni of my Amazon guys now at PickFu, which apparently now PickFu and Jungle Scout share a room together.
So he's in town. We're going to film some awesome content, by the way, on our YouTube channel, and then we're doing a webinar as well. But yeah, nice.
Awesome. So that was we literally are live here. So
yes, this is the definition of a live Q&A. Anything can happen.
Gotcha. So you must be at the Jungle Scout office.
Yes, I'm in office here. And then he actually just came in. We're gonna film some content together.
And nice. Apparently, if you have like a tie on the door or a red light that says "Do not enter," John wouldn't respect that. He would just
that's
come
all right.
In. No, that's all good. It's all good.
Keeps it
that
light.
Was funny. Yes, no, John is a very good guy. John's provided lots of great content. And so if you're not following John, you can learn a lot when it comes to click-through rate and things like that. So, all right. So we were talking a little bit about back-end search terms. Did you have more you wanted to add to back-end search term conversation?
I'll add one more thought here. Yeah, it's basically how I interpret back-end search terms is, what else can you tell Amazon that is helpful for them? So what types of people buy your products? What events do they use it for? And what other words might a small minority use to enter to look for your product? And so sometimes if you're selling a product that people use for parties, you could put in Christmas, birthday, Easter, whatever events are out there, and then it will help Amazon understand that your product is for a certain event or seasonal time period.
Yes. Oh, and one thing just to note, and we didn't say it in either time, do not put your competitors' brand name in the back. That will get you slapped pretty hard. You can advertise for your competitor's brand name. They'll take your money all day long for that, but they don't want you to try to trick the algorithm to think that, yours is a certain brand name. I wouldn't even put Apple in the back if you're like selling iPhone cases. I wouldn't do anything. I'd be very careful about what you put in the back. But anything that has to do with like just giving more context, like we also gave Spanish as an example. Was one of the things Jake mentioned earlier. I would, think about things like that. Or if, yours as a particular German people, I don't know why I came up with that, look for your product. And so maybe you put the German word for it or something like that, or a synonym that wouldn't make sense in the title. All right. So next up, Jaleel asks, if I'm running a keyword in exact phrase and broad, but I see that the phrase match campaign converts better at a lower cost per click, how would this get affected if I turn off the other two campaigns? All three were doing well, but the phrase match was a clear winner in terms of conversion and cost per click.
I think that's rooted. That makes a lot of sense. Like if something is doing better, you should scale it. And one of the ways of scaling that would be to dial back something else that's limiting it from scaling. However, it's so hard, and I actually will say now, I think it's impossible to tell Amazon what to do.
Right?
They're going to do it anyway. So like if you were to even increase your bids on that phrase, I think it was phrase of the winner, and decrease your bids on the other one, they're still going to try to win you bids at a lower cost per click on the other campaigns. You're just going to be spending more on phrase. So I actually don't even negate any good keywords from an automatic campaign for this reason.
Good answer.
I let Amazon's algorithm do what they want to do because they're smarter than me. They are. I mean, their algorithm is the smartest person on the world when it comes to bidding products or bidding for customers' attention. So I wouldn't try to control Amazon. Do increase your budgets, do increase your bids, even tweak your bidding strategy to up and down, modify your placements, figure out if top of search or product placement is better, increase that. But I wouldn't decrease anything else, especially if it's doing good.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And Amazon has said over time that you're not bidding against yourself if the keywords in multiple places. I know people sometimes get very elaborate with like deduplicating and things like that. But at the end of the day, if you're making sales and you're doing it profitably, just do it. Like, because you're probably showing up in different places or for different keywords. So phrase is going to potentially show up in different places than broad. The broad might show up in the same places that phrase does, but not necessarily vice versa. So just keep that in mind, is that if you're making sales in the other two, don't turn it off. Just continue to let phrase make sales more profitably than the others. And if Amazon's algorithm says, we like this better, and you're doing well, I would just keep at it. And like Jake said, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway.
Maybe this is a dumb example or analogy here, but imagine you have two fires next to each other and you want to get one of the fires higher. You wouldn't stomp on the other fire in order to get the other one higher. You just pour more gasoline on it simply.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, another analogy kind of like that, I don't know why I just came up with this one, is I live on somewhat of a corner, and like, so the street that kind of comes perpendicular, we face east, or that if you're looking down the street, you're facing east. So we have a tree that's at that intersection. It's one of the biggest trees on our street. Why? Because it just happens to get a lot of sunlight. And so it does better. We wouldn't cut down all the other trees because that one tree happens to be doing better. We're still getting, you know, good usage out of other trees, but just the one just so happens to be the one that gets the most sunlight. So just it's bigger. Yeah. So anyway, whether it's fires, trees, keywords, whatever.
We could do a whole Q&A with just analogies, I think.
I know. I love analogies. I love analogies. So I love where you're going with this. All right. So thanks. Nothing from the product changes, and it's not seasonal. Oh, this is going back to Viper 12, 13. The average bid increased. Thanks. I'll adjust it and see how they work. So it sounds like maybe the competitors increased.
Yeah, got more competitive.
And it could be this is seasonal going the other way, where now this is actually, he says it's not seasonal. Sometimes we're surprised by what is seasonal and what is not seasonal.
Every product is seasonal, I would argue. Certain products are like clearly seasonal, where like 80% of sales happen at this point, where 20% happens throughout the year. But every product, no product is always a straight line. It's always going to go up and down. And that's something you can try to predict with year-over-year trends, like search volume trends, sales trends as well. But it's very hard to always stay on top of these minor seasonality changes.
Yeah. And sometimes those seasonality changes are things you might not even think of. Like, you know, right now it's dads and grads, you know? And so maybe yours is, you wouldn't have thought about it, but this is something people give as a graduation gift or something like that. And so maybe your competitors know that and they're going after certain keywords, and that's affecting you. So that's another way to look at it too. Or that season's over.
One more thing, I recently heard of this in a different way, and we've talked about this already, but you mentioned the average bid increase, and we talked about earlier, Kevin, like why you want to segment campaigns and have these different levers, having one campaign target literally like a close match targeting type versus another one targeting like the substitute targeting type. This is why it's really important to do that, because CPCs change depending on where you're showing up. So top of search will have a different CPC than product pages, you know. Loose match will have different CPCs and close match. So if you are able to segment your campaigns and be really, really granular, you can see exactly where that CPC bid increased rather than just looking at it on the keyword level. And that keyword is, bidding on different placements. So it could just be a placement thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. There's a lot you can do to diagnose and see where the issues are.
Yeah.
All right. So Sam Expands asks, can we use two different main images for PPC campaigns? Can it help increasing sales?
Is maybe A/B testing? Is that?
Yeah, maybe A/B testing. So you could use PickFu, which John was just there in the background. He's probably might be around there running around somewhere causing havoc. But You could use PickFood to run a test, or you could be running Amazon experiments. But with sponsored products, unfortunately, it's just showing whatever the main image is. So you don't really have creative control over what goes in the. You do in some cases with some types of sponsored brands. You can put certain images to go along with the ad, as well as some sponsored display, or if you're doing DSP. So there's ways you can do it, but the main image itself is the main image. So if you change it, it changes it everywhere. And if you change it, generally speaking, if you change it in the US and you sell that product in Japan, it's probably going to change it over there too. So it usually follows the ASIN everywhere. So just keep that in mind with your main images. All right. So Royce asks, going back to the hotly debated topic here of campaign, but I'm told to do $50 to $100 per campaign if I want it to be effective, if I'm in demand, or if I'm in for demand for competition from Mag Summit, because easy keywords still have high volume. I'm not sure I fully understand the question here, but here's the thing with PPC. There is no sacred cow. Kevin says do it this way. Jake says do it that way. Someone else says do it another way. And everyone is going to say that we're going to die on our hill because in our experience, it's this way. It's too many ways to skin the cat and too many moving pieces depending on the product to try it out. So I would say at the end of the day, anything in business, the goal is don't run out of money. So if that helps to crystallize that, anything else you want to add on that, Jake?
I think that's perfect.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right. And folks, we still have time for a few more questions. So if you ask your questions, we might still be able to get to them. So you can drop them into the chat. So Harris asks, I merged one of my solo listings into an existing parent listing, making it a variation. Now we have 4 listings as variations, and the products are all the same, but in different quantities. So these are quantity variations. I use
or that last
PPC now, and should I launch different campaigns for all ASINs? You kind of touched on this with parent-child variations earlier.
Yeah, just circle back on that. I would have the same strategy. Except if you see people searching for those higher quantities, like if there is search volume to say, someone is typing in 2-pack of X, 5-pack of X, that's the only thing I would change. Or if it's like a bulk quantity, then adding in bulk related keywords. Sometimes people do type in, like clothes hangers in bulk clothes hangers, things like that. So everything would be the same except for making sure that you're being really precise with your quantities in your keywords and really hoping that people actually seeing that people actually search for those.
Yeah, exactly. And in no sense, going too hard on ones that don't necessarily make sense to the product.
Yeah.
I like this screen name. Devoted Chicken Nuggets asks, you advertise your top products, Big Daddy. That's what it is. Okay. So it sounds like somebody's probably responding to someone else who is asking a question, but you advertise your top products. We're probably talking here about parent-child variations, which has become quite the topic here. I'm assuming that's what it is, but in general, if you're making sales, it's oftentimes not a good idea to turn it off. Although variations, you're bringing it onto a page and they could click the other variations, but how much do people really click into other variations, as well as if they go on a search result page and they click on your listing? There's a little bit, you start losing intent every time they click within a listing, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So Fatzima Zahara asks, what is the most effective auto campaigns or manual ones for launching your first product? We're getting a lot of launch questions here.
Yeah. I mean, this is a good question. I think that my answer here will probably be an answer for a lot of questions, but it really doesn't, there's no one campaign or target type that's going to work for everybody. So sometimes, like historically, I have always found that close match beats loose match, and that's in the name. It's you're going to be letting Amazon target more closely related keywords than loosely related ones. And then substitutes does better than complements, is because complements is finding different products. Like if you're selling coffee pods, it might advertise your product on a coffee maker, whereas substitutes is going to advertise your coffee pods against other coffee pods. And so those have always been my two favorite, just looking at the data and how they perform. But I will say I've been really surprised whenever I've launched new campaigns for different products that I've worked with. I'll always create these segmented campaigns, and I still make one for loose match and substitutes. And sometimes loose match just works better. So I don't know how that works. It's probably just product specific, and it can change in different categories, but I would launch them all and then just wait and see what happens, and then either slow down or turn off the bad ones and increase the other ones.
Got it. All right. And like with anything in business, just double down on what works.
Yeah.
All right. So in a for demand, for comp, should I stick with only moderate and easy keyword phrases and still have high volume to keep PPC costs low? Should I avoid difficult keywords unless I have a huge budget? So I think this is going back to, going after pee pads or reusable pee pads for dogs, or, markers versus purple dry erase marker. So, what is the intent on that keyword? And so if budget is a concern, I think I already know what Jake's answer is going to be, but what direction should someone go who's starting out?
Yeah, I would still find the lowest competitive keyword. And you mentioned something here that's interesting, but like you say, that still has high volume. Mm-hmm. I would actually just eliminate that from your brain at this point, because for example, we talked about washable pee pads for dogs. That's a long tail keyword with high intent. However, the search volume is insane on it. It's like over 100,000. And that's still a competitive keyword, even though it's a high intent long tail keyword. And so we go after that keyword, but our listing is at 1,000 reviews now, so we can compete with it. But when we first started out, and we still do it today because we want to dominate, is going after long tail keywords that don't have high search volume. So, that could be anywhere around 500 monthly searches. That could be, I wouldn't be afraid to go under 1,000 is what I'm trying to say. Like, don't be afraid to go after keywords that don't have that high search volume. Because if you stack those together, it might take a while to spend and even get sales, but that's going to be way more profitable than you trying to compete with these high volume keywords, even if those high volume keywords are high intent.
Exactly. And one of the things I think that also keep in mind is, Amazon gives us a lot of data points, and we talk about certain data, and we oftentimes talk about separately click-through rate and conversion rate. But if you think about it, if you go into manage experiments, if you look at what they label as conversion rate, it has to be your click-through rate times your conversion rate. And so they're not looking at it as someone searches for, reusable dog pee pad. They're looking at it as, or I should say, it's not someone clicks on the listing and they convert. It's every time we show for that particular keyword, because there's only so many people looking for certain keywords in a given time period. Who do they want to show it to? It's the people more likely to end up in a sale, what they're going to make money off of in the back end. And so if you're going to be more likely to get them the sale, they're going to be more likely to show you. And so over time, they start to know that. And so, if the high intent keywords are giving Amazon, this is a good product that's going to start moving through the ranking because it is showing it's able to close for the keywords that it's shown for. And if you keep saying, I want to show for something expensive just because, it has a lot of volume and it seems relevant, but if the customer is not saying it's relevant, then Amazon doesn't think your product is relevant. And that could hurt you in other ways too.
Real quick, I'd love to give a pro tip here that I probably should have brought up earlier, but don't sleep on, because we're talking a lot about keyword campaigns. Don't sleep on product targeting campaigns and category targeting campaigns, especially when you're just launching, because you can, in a product targeting campaign, fine tune which ASINs you're going to compete with. And if you have 0 reviews at the time, or even 10, then you should be picking ASINs that have under like 30 reviews. So your closer competitors. You can do the same thing in a category campaign. You can target people within your price range, within your review range. And once they get traffic, and the people that didn't convert and they scroll down to the bottom of the page, that's where you can capitalize and get a lot of sales. It's slower, like you won't get a lot of spend and impressions and sales, but it's typically more profitable. And if you have a lot of those ASINs, then it could be, I think it's going to be way more profitable than bidding on keywords. And if you want to take it one more step further, you can find these competitors, your close competitors, that are advertising like crazy. And they, you can find that with a tool like Jungle Scout. We have rank tracker tool that you can see any products, organic and sponsored rankings each day. And how I've launched and have launched some of these campaigns is I find those competitors that are spending on ads a lot, and they might not even be ranked high, but they're presumably getting clicks if they're ranking for it. And then as long as they're within my price range and within like a 50 review range, I will bid on their ASIN, because I'm just banking on their conversion rate being low and then them coming down to my listing, which has a good image, good conversion rate, and capitalizing on what they couldn't convert on.
Yeah, exactly. They spent all the money to get people to the listing. Now you're just kind of siphoning them off to your listing, essentially. So
yeah.
All right. So I think we got time for one more question. We got lots of good questions. So if I didn't get to your question, it's nothing personal. But Harris Khan asks, what is your opinion on this? I launched a auto campaign 2 years ago for one of my products, and now it's performing so great that if I pull out a report and make an optimized manual campaign, still not performing the same as auto. So this means the auto campaign in the long run can be more beneficial.
Absolutely. Yeah. Going back to what we said or talked about earlier, Kevin, don't stop Amazon from helping you. And certainly you want to like add more fuel to the fire by taking those keywords from the auto, putting them into their own manual. But Amazon is going to do what they're going to do. And if your auto campaign is where they want to spend the money and get you to win those bids versus your manual campaign, then let them do that. As you mentioned earlier, you're not competing with yourself with those two campaigns, but for some reason, Amazon's more easily able to win you the bid in the auto campaign than the manual campaign. And so I let that keep happening.
Yeah, let them do it. I mean, at the end of the day, their algorithm is smarter than we think that we can outsmart it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, whether it's you're dealing with Amazon, Google, whatever, there used to be a time where you could say like, oh, here's what I could do to kind of trick the algorithm or stuff. These algorithms have all gotten so good. And with AI and all the other stuff that's coming up and, supercomputers, like, just let them do their thing. If they're giving you results, don't try to trick them into like, oh, I'm going to negate the keyword here, so I kind of force them to isolate over here. Well, they, for whatever reason, their algorithms seem to think your product works well here. So if it is working and it's not broke, don't fix it. So if you're getting sales from auto campaigns, run that auto campaign until it stops working.
Absolutely.
All right, good deal. So if folks want to learn more about Jungle Scout, can you explain what Jungle Scout is real quick?
Yeah, Jungle Scout is a market intelligence platform that helps sellers really of all stages. We help entrepreneurs just getting started, and we help some of the world's largest brands with enterprise tools. And so if you're looking to get started, I think the link is on the screen there for my Amazon guys discount code to get started with Jungle Scout. So I would check that out below. Get you learning more about what we do, what we offer, and we have a bunch of free resources. If you're not ready to make the jump yet, head over and watch our YouTube videos, head over and read our reports, our free reports, and then we have a full blog as well that, we have tons of content gets uploaded every single week. So whether you're trying to do something, get something for free, or try out the tool yourself, check out that link below.
Yeah, definitely. And again, the link will be down below, as well as you see it scrolling through the screen right now. Jungle Scout has been around for a long time. There's a reason, because they've gotten to see what works and what doesn't. So Jake, thank you for coming on and sharing with our audience what works and what does not. And we went a few different directions that I've not seen us go on this show before. So it was good.
Oh, cool.
So we had a lot of good discussions about back-end search terms, and a lot of good discussions here about variations, as well as budgets and things when you're launching. So that's topics we don't always necessarily cover. So if you're just catching the back end of this, you may want to go back and rewatch some of this, because Jake had a lot of good knowledge to share with us with that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin.